And welcome back to another episode of the Believe in Georgia Tech podcast. We are your co-hosts. That is RJ Schafer. I'm Jackson Caudell, coming to you on Monday afternoon, a couple of days after Georgia Tech's convincing win over VMI, I guess for lack of a better word. Yes, we did not record an instant reaction on Saturday because RJ made a trip down to Atlanta, and I had to. He was at the game, his first Georgia Tech game on Saturday. I showed him around Saturday night after the game. We were like, okay, he's going to be back Monday. We're going to do a show then. So that is why we didn't have an instant reaction. So first of all, RJ, how you doing? And I guess just share a little bit about your first Georgia Tech experience, and just kind of what it was like. And your thought. We'll get into the game in a minute.
Yeah, it was great. I'll say the city in general, like growing up in Michigan, close to Detroit, like you kind of have an expectation of what big cities are like because I've seen what Detroit is like. Atlanta is not like that. Atlanta is a great city. You know, there are very nice people. Southern manners is a real thing. So there was a lot to look forward to in and out of the stadium. Tech played amazing. I would say Bobby Dodd was a lot louder than I thought. There was a lot of people there for the opponent that they were playing.
Well, the weather
thought,
too, honestly.
yeah, that too. I got 3 autographs after the game. Like, it was just, it was a great fan experience, and I'll try to make it back to another game this year.
Absolutely. Yes, and I made sure to take him to fine Southern dining. I got him in Waffle House after the game Saturday night, and we enjoyed that. We were actually on the edge of our seat the whole time because we were like, that was during the middle of the Georgia game, and we're like, are they really going to do this? Like, are they really going to lose this game? They didn't, obviously, but it was an interesting Saturday night to say the least. But yeah, it was super cool him being down there for a game. I was obviously at the game up in the press box, writing about it and everything. So I guess let's just dig into it a little bit. Again, we're not trying to be disrespectful to the opponent, but I think we knew going in, and it became pretty clear early on that VMI was very, very, very overmatched, and this was not going to be a game for very long. I actually, we have Najee on the show. I actually leaned over and was talking to him during the game, and I'm like, at halftime, I'm like, yeah, there's going to be running clocks. Like, what's the upside for both teams to play 2 15-minute quarters? And that is what happened. So, but it was the exact game you wanted to see against this type of team. We talked about, basically the only thing we wanted to see was just a good start and a dominant effort all the way through, because that's what should happen. That's exactly what happened. Like I was a little not concerned, but I was just a little. I wanted to see if there was going to be any sluggishness. I guess the Syracuse game. What it was. They hit Tech in the mouth a little bit and got the win. And I was just kind of curious to how they would respond. And they typically respond well after losses on with Brent Key as the head coach, but. I was a little, again, not anxious, but just seeing how the first couple of drives went. I knew they would probably eventually settle in, and that's pretty much what happened. I think, and I know they didn't score on their very first possession, but they were backed up on the 4-yard line. Haynes King played. I guess I want to kind of go position by position, maybe for a game like this. It's just Haynes King played about as well as you could have. And Brent Key talked about it after the game. It wasn't, game management or anything. It was just, he played really, really well. I mean, threw 3 touchdowns, nearly 300 yards, and he only played one half. And the passing game was it looked just crisp the whole time. And there was even a couple of misses, to be perfectly honest with you. He had what I thought Singleton caught that ball at the beginning of that game. I know there was a play where he hit a deep shot to Singleton, and it looked like he clearly got it, but that was not the case. But, for the day, he finished 17 of 22, 275 yards, 3 touchdowns. Didn't take a sack, didn't throw an interception. I mean, any thoughts on his performance? I mean, it was pretty clean.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty solid, and I think we saw that the passing game look better even after he went out. This is probably the most dominant performance he's had as a starting quarterback, because obviously there's been games where you play an opponent and you think you'll have him physically unmatched. I think that's what happened with VMI. You're not going to recruit at the level of a Division I Power 5 school if you're FCS VMI Military Academy. Like, that's just how it is. But I think Haynes King worked with what he had. I think there were, busting coverage. I think read the field really well today. Something he hasn't, done in the past. I just think this was a really solid game. Like every single facet of the game, throwing the ball, running the ball, finding guys open. It was flawless.
Yeah. I mean, he wrapped up in the first half. Zach Pyron, he came in and he got a couple of rushing touchdowns at the goal line. Which again, it's just when you have him being able to do stuff like that, that's good. He didn't play super deep into the second half. Like he did start the third quarter. He ended up going 3 for 5, 58 yards, and again the 2 rushing touchdowns. Not really much to say about his performance. It was good, but again, he really didn't play all that much after halftime. Aaron Philo did come in, the true freshman. He went 3 of 5, 49 yards, had a 41-yard pass. Him being able to stay on his feet. I know everybody knows the exact play I'm talking about. Evade the pressure, stay on his feet, and deliver the strike down the field to Chris Elko. That was impressive. Again, it's VMI. It was fourth quarter in a game or in a run clock against VMI. I thought that play was pretty impressive, and for his first college action, he showed poise and did some good things.
Yeah, I was just gonna touch on the same exact thing. Like he looks like he already is a starting level quarterback, already knows what he's doing. He was very good at evading pressure
for the game. I hate to interrupt you, but he just looked like like I said, he knew what he was doing. He had a good feel for it, I thought, for, again, your first college action.
And I just think he looked so good in the pocket. Like, it's like he had been there 20 times already. So hopefully he'll be a guy that they can build on in the future. Like, after Haynes King departure, I bet you we're going to see a lot of Aaron Philo.
Also, shout out to Brody Rhodes for coming in. He got a couple snaps. Brent Key really, I think, wanted to get him in because they love him. He's a really hard worker there, and the quarterbacks always talk super high of him. I know Haynes talked about him after the game. Zach Pyron as well. Like they love Brody. Like I love to see him get in there in this game. Going to running backs, I think we obviously have to start this conversation off with Trelain Maddox, the true freshman. How many times have we talked about the backup running back? Like, I feel like we almost over talk about it. Like, I feel like anytime we start about it, I can almost see people listening to this podcast rolling eyes and go, "Oh, here we go again with this." But it has still been a talking point that we haven't had anybody emerge as the true number 2. And I'm not saying that Trelain Maddox has emerged as true number 2, but I thought he was impressive because again, he got injured at Parkview High School last year. And, he's been kind of slowly coming back from that. Did not play in the first 2 games. But I'll just say, being at practice, noticing him, he's physically impressive for a true freshman. And I think running back is a position where I think you can be pretty advanced as far as that goes as freshmen. But, he looks the part in practice. When I see him doing individual drills at practice, we'd asked Brent Key a couple times, hey, when can we see him? And he's just always like, when he's healthy, when he's ready, he'll play. We don't, it kind of sounded like coach speak to me, but he looked really impressive on Saturday. Carried the ball, let's see here, 9 times for 53 yards, did get a touchdown, averaged 5.9 yards a carry. Anthony Carey got a little bit of action at the end. Chad Alexander got a little bit. I guess I'll let you get your thoughts in on Trelain Maddox before I go to another question about the running backs.
Yeah, I did like what you said about him being physical. I think we've seen that with all of the Georgia Tech running backs. Anybody who has gotten a snap, anybody who's gotten a carry this season, you can go down the list. You can go Anthony Carey, Jamal Haynes, Chad Alexander. Every single running back that's on this roster, very physical. And I think that's kind of what we're trying to breed at the running back position that we've seen other teams have for a very long time. And I just think it's impressive because you can have 5th, maybe even 6th string running back come in, do the same thing as everybody else. And I think that's also a testament to how good the offensive line is.
Yeah. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to get to, and again, I'm not saying I am worried. Are you worried at all about Jamal Haynes?
No, I think he knew he probably wasn't going to play a lot in the game.
And I would normally agree with that. I guess it's just coming off, not a great game against Syracuse, who, for all we know, does not have a very good defense and got crushed by Ohio as far as the run game goes. And again, I'm not saying I'm worried. I just posing the question. 7 carries for 30 yards, had a long of 14. So he had 6 carries for 16 yards in his other carries. So that there were a couple times, especially early in the game, and some of this I would honestly probably put more on the offensive line than I would Haynes. Is they were trying to get to the outside and get him loose, and like, to VMI's credit, they really penetrated the backfield pretty well in the first couple of drives. And like I said, Haynes only carried the ball 7 times. I wasn't expecting him to get a lot of carries. So again, you are looking at a small sample size. Like, Haynes is a guy, if you gave him like 7, 8 more carries, he could have easily totaled like 90 to 100 yards just on those alone because of how explosive he is. I just at least wanted to pose the question just because it was, we're used to seeing him run wild a lot. And, it was a second straight game where, not gaudy stats, but again, I don't think it was part of the game plan to come in here and get Jamal 30 carries against VMI because, again, and we'll talk about this later in the week, but you got a big game this weekend. So, again, I'm not worried. I just thought it was at least interesting to maybe discuss.
And I think a lot of it is because of most of his carries were on the goal line. Like that first drive where Georgia Tech was pinned deep, like VMI pretty much had Georgia Tech's number that drive.
Yeah, and that just shows you how, even against a team like VMI, when you're backed up like that, it makes everything harder because everything is condensed. You're trying to stay out of the end zone because, like, Georgia Tech would have won anyway, but it's like, do you really want to give up like a safety or something and give VMI a 2-0 lead and have them get some energy? Like, no, you don't. So you're trying to just get out of there. And like I said, like, to VMI's credit, they really sealed the edge off well and created some penetration on those first couple of defensive drives. Anything else about running backs? Like, I still think it's going to be a by committee approach. I don't think like after this game, like, okay, now it's Trelain Maddox for good now at the running back spot. But like, I think it could just be who has the hot hand. Like maybe they give him some carries in the game. If he doesn't do well, Jamal is still going to be the number 1 back. Maybe Anthony Carey comes in and gets some touches. So we'll see. I still think it's a by committee approach. Would you say the same?
Yeah. I don't think that's really going to change anytime soon.
Yeah. So receivers, I mean, Eric Singleton was awesome. 5 catches, 102 yards, touchdown, all in the first half. Like, King really wanted to, I think, feed him in that game, and you can see it early on. Malik Rutherford had the 35-yard catch and run with the screen pass, something we've seen him do a million times. Chase Lane was pretty solid, 2 catches, 54 yards. Avery Boyd got another touchdown. And Chris Elko, again, he had the long catch from Aaron Philo. I mean, again, the starters dominated the first half. I mean, if they really wanted to, I mean, Eric Singleton could add like 300 yards probably if he played the whole game. But it was encouraging to see that because you haven't seen like a monster receiving game from him just because of how much Tech's been running the ball. His playmaker.
And I think we saw less of the, I guess, straight deep ball game that we wanted to see. Yeah. But there were still a ton of big plays passing wise. Like, guys were getting open, especially Malik Rutherford, I remember the most. Whether it was a screen or a short pass, like he's a guy that can just outrun everybody else. Same thing with Eric Singleton, but I think Malik Rutherford is he's shifty in open space. You kind of don't expect it. He kind of has basketball moves to the way he moves around the football field. It's kind of cool to watch.
Yeah.
But just the wide receiver group is insanely talented in open space.
Yeah. Still a pretty good rotation at the tight end position. Like, okay, just, going off Pro Football Focus. And again, they're not gospel, but again, it's a pretty good source. I mean, Josh Beetham, he played 21 snaps at tight end. Avery Boyd, 17. Jackson Hall's 31. Rylan Goday got in there for 17 snaps. Luke Harpering did get in there. He had 10 snaps according to PFF. So a lot of tight ends got to play. And it was almost kind of like normal. Like, I don't think they really set out to do anything different at the tight end position. Like, again, I think Beetham getting more snaps than Boyd is the one thing that's different. You're not going to see that obviously every game, but I think Avery Boyd's turned into a good weapon in the passing game.
Yeah. I think he's shown up and he showed out. He had that one pass that he wished he would have caught, but
I thought he did catch that pass.
I did too.
I thought he did catch that pass. And I know that sounds very like, blaming the refs or something for a bad call all the time, but like, go back and look at it. Everybody knows the play I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think he's progressed a lot as a tight end. I think he's kind of adapted into the position. I think it took a minute, to be fair.
Yeah.
Obviously, putting yourself in a new situation like that, starting out of the gate, it's going to be different. I feel like he was really solid, especially route running today. Well, not today.
Not today.
2 days ago when the game happened. But I think he's adjusted the position well.
Yeah. Just I guess going over the offensive line pretty quickly. I thought it was good that some guys, a lot of guys got snaps. We saw Benjamin Galloway get 20 snaps. Tana Alotupalola, I hope I pronounced his name right, 20 snaps. A freshman center. Brandon Best got 20 snaps. We saw Corey Robinson get 29 snaps. We know he's splitting time at left tackle with Jordan Brown. Harrison Moore, I'm a big Harrison Moore fan. He got 30 snaps. He's another true freshman. So you saw plenty of some of the offensive line depth. They obviously played a lot in the second half. Pretty solid performance. It wasn't nothing like insane or anything, but getting some guys for their first reps, I thought it was pretty good overall. I thought the starters did pretty good. I don't think it was like a dominant ground game, but so going back, I guess, to the Haynes King thing, one thing we talked about on the previous show, and one thing I was glad they didn't do was no design carries for Haynes King. Like, I did not want to see that in this game. There's no point doing it. So I do think that, you have to account for that. And, and they got 190 yards rushing. I'm not sitting here saying they didn't have a good day. But I do think, some of it was you didn't have the quarterback run game in any of that outside of the Zach Power and goal line carries. But, again, I thought it's probably the most snaps some of those guys are hopefully going to see the rest of this year because the offensive line has stayed pretty healthy so far. But pretty solid day all around, I'd say.
And I think it's nice to see that we have the depth like that because, even when you had guys that don't normally start, don't normally get downs played in a game, they got a ton of push, the offensive line did. I think that's something we're going to see. I think I've said this with pretty much every position, but I think offensive line more than any other place on the field. I've said this again and again and again, but it's so important. Like, this is where Brent Key wants to build and live this team by. He wants everything to start with the O-line, skill positions later. And I like that idea, and I think that's how you build a quality program.
Defensively, holy smokes. I know it's VMI. I know. I can already hear the groaning, like, oh, you're really going to get excited about that. But I do think that is exactly what you wanted to see. Like, I think if you went before the game, if you asked most Georgia Tech fans, like, okay, what's the outcome you'd like to see from the defense today? It probably looked exactly like that, correct? Like, they had one first down in the first half. Like, they could not block Georgia Tech at all. I mean, they finished with 104 yards on 47 plays. So they averaged 2.2 yards a play. Like, again, it's VMI, I understand. But, like, that's exactly the kind of performance you want to see. Still a lot to prove. I will say that. And we're going to dig into this matchup later this week because I still have some concerns. But, again, it's exactly what you wanted to see.
And I think looking with how they matched up against the VMI offense, like, it was crazy because we said going into the game, VMI is a run-heavy team. VMI didn't have positive rushing yards until the fourth quarter. They ended the game with 12 rushing yards, averaged 0.4 yards per carry. It was completely dominant. Everything VMI wanted to do, Georgia Tech was having nothing of it. I will say they got more plays late in the game. I think that's just because it was late in the game.
And you having some more inexperienced guys in there because, I mean, Kyle Eifert only played 16 snaps on Saturday, and he finished with like a 92 grade on PFF. Like, I mean, that's like, it's not a 99, but like in a typical game, it's hard to grade even that high. So, like, he looked pretty good. Just some other snap counts I think were notable. Getting Tajay Butler 35 snaps I think is huge for him. Like, he's played in some games. He's played like a handful of snaps. But I think being able to get him on the field, and they're very high on him. Like Brent Key, he talked a lot about him after the game. They really love where he's at again. He's a true freshman linebacker, so there's going to be some lumps in there. So, but I thought getting him 35 snaps was huge. We saw Zach Toby get 33 snaps, the Illinois transfer. I'm pretty sure that's the most he's played this year. Taysom Moore, he got some pretty good snaps. Just kind of cruising down the list here. Syed Gibbs, he got 40 snaps. I think he led the way with the whole defense there. But just several guys just getting some snaps. We saw Jacob Cruz get in there, Nehemiah Chandler, Austin Dean, Jackson Hamilton, Shameik Jones, some guys that normally are not going to get in there. Christian Pritchett was a guy who got in there. They did get 3 sacks as well. Also, Jordan Boyd, who I know me and you are both very high on as an edge rusher. Montre Bradford got in there as well. So just kind of talking about the defense holistically, I think they wanted to try to get some guys in there, and they look pretty good. Also, Sylvain Yonderwin getting a sack, his first sack since his ACL tear last year. Thought that was awesome. Amari Harvey forcing that fumble on the second drive of the game. Like that. Love seeing that. Josh Robinson, I think, got 1 sack. Let me see who had the other one. But, yeah, I just thought overall it was just really good.
Yeah, Trinilius Tatum had the other sack.
He's been a tackle for loss machine kind of so far this year. Like,
he had 2 today. Well, 2 days ago.
Man, that lack of sleep's killing you, man.
See, I'm dreaming about the VMI game. I wish every game was like this. But if you go through and look at the TFL numbers, like there were a solid amount of guys who got TFLs. Jordan Vandenberg had a half. Emilio Height had a half. Tay Seymour, Taj Butler, Joshua Robinson. Georgia Tech had 10 tackles for loss in the day. And I think that's something you want to build on because getting into the backfield 10 times and finishing a tackle, that's an accomplishment by itself.
And, they're going to have to – you got to carry it over because, again, this is by far the easiest team you're going to play this year. And, again, it was exactly what you wanted to see. Like, there was no doubts about this game. There was never a moment in this game where you're really complaining about the way Georgia Tech was performing. Again, if I really, really wanted to nitpick, I wish Jamal Haynes would have had some more explosive runs, I guess. But that was pretty much it. I thought overall it was a really solid day all around, and the kind of win you need, because that was the 4th game of the year. Like, it feels like we're still young in the college football season, but Tech's going to play their 5th game on Saturday, and this is Louisville's 3rd. So, they've gone to Dublin, they've gone to Syracuse. Georgia State apparently, they beat Vanderbilt, so shout out to them. It was, you needed this kind of performance against this team, but now it's, time to put it to bed and get ready for a really good Louisville team, or what I think is a really good Louisville team. I still think we got to learn a little bit more about them. But anything else from the VMI game?
That's all I got.
That's probably all that we needed to say. So we will be back on Wednesday. We just kind of wanted to do a little VMI wrap-up here. We said, didn't get an instant reaction show on Saturday. We just kind of wanted to discuss the game here, get RJ's thoughts, have us both here together. We're going to have another special guest on Wednesday. He might be familiar to some of you. You'll have to wait to see who it is, but we have a special guest lined up for Wednesday to help us preview the Louisville game. Didn't get to it at the beginning of the show, but again, just want to say we really appreciate all the support. We're growing pretty fast. We still have a lot of room where we want to get to, but if you would just subscribe to the channel, like the video, hit that notification bell so you know whenever new content comes out so you can get right on it. If you listen in podcast form, just leave us a review, leave us a comment, let us know what we're doing, what you like what we're doing. If you think we can be doing something better, we always love to hear it. Feedback is always a good thing, good or bad, and we appreciate everybody taking the time to do it. But RJ, anything else?
Nope.
You sure?
I'm positive. Go Jackets. How about that?
Yeah. Doing the Brent Keith sign off. But yeah, we will be back Wednesday with a special guest helping us preview the game, and we will see you all then. Thanks for tuning in.